Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. The Canadians get a big needed win against the Blackhawks here, 4-1 at home, and definitely an improvement over last game. Definitely some things that can be cleared up. I think that's kind of been the theme as of late. Win or lose, there's always something to clean up. Haven't really played what I would consider to be a perfect game, but definitely considering what we were up against in terms of competition, it feels like that was definitely a game where we needed to walk away with some points, and we did exactly that, which is exactly what we needed. But yeah, I think that's it's a big improvement, a big 2 points there. Definitely something that we needed there. Especially considering we fought some adversity in that one as well. Definitely a step in the right direction in terms of momentum. I feel like I've been saying recently that momentum is a big driver for the Canadians, and getting the momentum against them has been kind of a detriment to us recently. But we were able to continue fighting. We had 2 goals that were deemed offsides after video review. So really, we scored 6 goals in this game, but only 4 of them actually counted. One of them being an empty netter as well. So it was definitely good to see them, despite the fact that some of their goals were getting wiped off the board. We were able to continue fighting. Martin St. Louis had a successful challenge of his own that took away the Blackhawks' first goal. Unfortunately, the Blackhawks scored in their very next shot. After that, it was a very nice pass from Grizzlick that found Nazar, just kind of just hanging out in the back door there. All he had to do was put a stick on the ice, and it found him and went in. So not a great start there, but definitely some chances early on. And then Bolduc gets his 8th of the season, his first goal in the Bell Center. So that must have felt really good for him to kind of get that monkey off of his back a little bit, scoring in front of his hometown crowd for the first time. Definitely big for him. Caulfield and Hudson get the assists on that one. So definitely a big deal for him, and definitely a big deal for the game as well. Kind of in the last 5 or 6 minutes of that opening period there, and that kind of turned things around a little bit. It definitely felt a little bit better to be tied going into the intermission as opposed to being down 1, considering all the pressure and chances the Canadians had offensively in this one. So definitely a big deal there. And then going into the second period, we had a nice power play that Brendan Gallagher scored on, but it ended up being waved off for offsides. As I mentioned, he was literally, like inches, not even an inch, like a millimeter offsides. And it's one of those things where it's just like that's not really the spirit of the offsides rule, but nevertheless, it's you got to enforce it. You can't. Like if it happens against us, I'm going to be calling for it as well. So it's fair play, but it's just one of those things where when it happens to you, it's like, man, that's not really the why the offside rule works, like why the offside rule is even a thing in the first place. But here we are, and both of these the only challenge for or goal in this game that took less than a minute was Martin St. Louis' challenge at the beginning of the game against the Blackhawks. Both of the offsides challenges took multiple minutes for the officiating crew to actually decide whether or not it was offsides. And that's one of those things where it's like, if it's taken you that long to figure out whether it is or is not offsides, chances are it didn't really impact the play all that much. But again, that's the way it goes. And that's the only thing that really happened positively or negatively in the second period. Definitely some chances both ways as well, but that goal wiped out was the big deal there. And then going into the third period, 20 seconds in, Bolduc doubles down, getting his 9th of the season. Hudson and Suzuki with the assists on that one. So yeah, I mean, he got the monkey off of his back, and then he felt a little bit lighter, feeling a little bit better all of a sudden, and he scores another one. It's a really nice tip. Hudson finds him really nicely in the slot with his stick kind of open for a tip opportunity. Hudson gets a slap shot that goes off of Bolduc's stick and into the top of the net. And suddenly, 20 seconds into the third, we're looking to be in a much better position, up 1. And then Josh Anderson, 40 seconds later, scores to make it 3-1. But that one was also called offside for what was even more of a really tight call. I mean, it was offsides by maybe a few millimeters and for like a couple fractions of a second. And it's like that's really the one where I'm like, this is barely offsides. Like, it is offsides, and you can tell from that replay with a little bit of white ice, but it's only a few pixels and for a few fractions of a second. So it's really just one of those things. Is like, dang, you would really like to have that one count, considering, how much pressure we were putting on them. It would be nice to get a quick 2-goal lead there. But Noah Dobson makes sure that that doesn't last for too long. He gets his 5th of the season, which as of right now is Noah Dobson's goal. I think that Owen Beck might have been the one that scored that one. It's hard to say. Owen Beck was definitely like the catalyst for why that goal went in, but it did kind of look like it might have gone just Owen Beck kind of hit Spencer Knight's glove, and his glove then bumped it into the net, which therefore makes it Dobson's goal because he was the last Canadian to touch the puck. I would like to honorarily give that to Owen Beck, but we'll see if they end up changing it at all. It's possible that Beck might have touched that one just like underneath the glove, and that's kind of what happens there. But yeah, either way, a big goal there. Demidov and Hudson, as of right now, getting the assists on that one. It might change at some point. Good to see Demidov getting points as well. He's got to keep things going in that Calder race. Although it looks like he's got some really tough competition going up against him right now. So should be interesting how that goes. And then yeah, pretty much as soon as the third period came around, the Canadians completely turned their game around. They found a new gear. They scored what is really 3 goals, but was only 2. And really took control of the game there. Nick Suzuki ended up scoring the empty netter with a little over 4 minutes left in the game, and that pretty much iced it there. Slavkovsky could have had a goal of his own there, but he missed the net on the empty net try from inside the zone, I think. But Suzuki made sure that he wouldn't be thinking about that for too long. He puts that one home right afterwards, and that's pretty much all it was. 35 shots on net as well for the Canadians. That's something that they've been struggling with a lot this season, is getting the puck to the net. They definitely did not struggle today. Spencer Knight had a really good game for the Blackhawks, but a little bit too many chances for the Canadians led to the Blackhawks losing this one. But really good to see from the Canadians actually getting the puck to the net. A lot of games we played recently anyway, we've gotten 20, if that, like especially last game on Tuesday, we only got like 20 or 21 shots or something like that on net, and that's just not going to work. You can't expect to win games when that's your effort level in the offensive zone. So good to see the Canadians getting that stuff done. Also, a little bit more of a disciplined game. 2 penalties for the Canadians in this one, but generally speaking, that is a lot better than what we've seen in previous games, and it was matched by 2 penalties from Chicago, making it an even slate in terms of power play time there. So definitely a good game all around there. I think definitely some things that you could look at in this one that I would want to clean up a little bit. One thing specifically is just that the Canadians are continuing to struggle to get the puck out of the zone, and it's leading to a lot of chances going the other way for the opposition, not just in this game, but in a lot of games this season. There's just a lot of opportunities where the Canadians are just taking a little bit too much time and trying to make the perfect play or whatever, or like moving around with the puck in their own zone, back passing it, whatever it is. It's just like we need to be able to find a way to just get pucks even to the neutral zone, just to get ourselves a quick breather, and then regroup or whatever. But there's too many chances that we're just giving to the opposition because we can't clear the zone, and the opposite team is finding ways to pressure us in our own zone. That's causing those turnovers, and obviously, we're missing, arguably our best defenseman in terms of ice time anyway, which is Mike Matheson. No clue when he's coming back as of now, which is definitely a concern there. But yeah, it's just one of those things where it's just like we just gotta find a way to just flip the puck out. And Struble had a mistake in the, I think was the third period. He tried to flip one out, and it didn't quite, flip the way he wanted it to, and he turned it into a turnover. And I'm not saying that we should just, flip from the middle of the ice, because then things are like that are going to happen. But even just getting it, off the glass, high and out, or, just finding a way to just get it off the boards or something like that. Like, there's just no reason why we should be dilly dallying with it and trying to stick handle up the ice or something like that. There was one opportunity I saw in the second period, I think, where Engstrom had the puck behind our goal, and then just kind of started skating right up the middle of the ice in our defensive zone. I was like, oh boy, this better work, otherwise this kid's getting sat for the rest of the game. And it did not work, so that was good. But yeah, other than that, I feel like it was a pretty solid game. There's definitely some turnover issues going on, but both teams kind of had that going both ways. And passing has definitely been an issue for this team, I feel like, recently. Pretty much for the whole season, really. Just like not being able to find accurate passes and causing turnover, or giving up turnovers because we're making bad passes or just not making the right heads up play. And that's been causing some issues for us. But those are things that are kind of like long-standing, and they'll take some time to kind of iron out. But generally speaking, it's a pretty solid game. The Canadiens walk away with a regulation win, which is definitely needed, and that keeps them in the conversation for the playoffs. It actually puts them in number 2 in the Atlantic as of right now. Definitely a lot more games going on in the coming days that might challenge that a little bit. But as of right now, the Canadiens are sitting pretty in a second in the Atlantic spot with 40 points in 34 games. So yeah, I think there's a lot to be happy about with where the team is at right now as we approach the Christmas break. That 3 days off there, we play 2 games in a row coming up, both against the Pittsburgh Penguins, a team that we played pretty well against in the last time we played them, but a different goaltender situation. We'll probably play Stuart Skinner on one, if not both of the nights. So that should be interesting to see what happens with those 2 games, the first one being at home and the second one being in Pittsburgh. So yeah, I think it should be interesting. 2 games, I think, as we saw in the first time those 2 teams met this season, they're definitely winnable games. I think if we find our game, play the way we played tonight, maybe a little bit better in terms of our transitions and passing game, all that kind of stuff, we can find a way to get another 4 points out of the weekend there. That would really put us in a good spot going into that Christmas break. But yeah, I think another thing to think about coming into the weekend as well is, what does our goaltending situation look like? Never mind what it looks like for Pittsburgh, because obviously right now we have Samuel Montembeault being in the minors right now. Unfortunately, he let in 5 goals in his AHL maybe debut. I don't think it was his debut, but he certainly hasn't played in the minors in a while. And his first game in the minors lets in 5 goals against the Monsters, the Cleveland Monsters. So it should be interesting to see what that tells them. Are they going to call him back up to play this weekend? Are they going to roll with Dobesh and Fowler? Are they going to send Fowler back down? Really, I don't know the answer to this one. I don't know what I would do. Obviously, the Fowler thing is a very interesting situation because he's looked pretty solid in all of his games. He had that one mistake in the game on Tuesday, but generally speaking, I feel like he's been pretty solid in his 3 NHL games of his career so far, especially considering that that's his first 3 NHL games of his career, playing goalie for a team that isn't necessarily completely defensively sound. So it'll be interesting. Like, I feel like he's a guy who could stay, and I think that he's more than serviceable as an NHL goaltender, but the question then becomes, like, do you want to keep him in the NHL? Do you want to put him back in the minors? He can continue to kind of develop or whatever, or if you send him back down, is that going to send the wrong message? And do we trust Dobesh to be like the bona fide starter, or do we call up Montembeault? It's like there's so many questions that you can ask right now, and I really don't know what the answer is. I feel like if I had to guess, I think that regardless of how Montembeault is doing in the minors, I think he is going to get called back up, and they're going to give him another shot. And if that doesn't really work out for us, then I think a trade might be coming, or some sort of managerial move that kind of changes our goaltender situation, because I don't think that they want to hold on to 3 goaltenders there. So. But yeah, that's a conversation for the weekend when that kind of gets sorted out by Ken Hughes and Jeff Gorton. But Yeah, that's kind of all that's going on for this one. Definitely a big win, and obviously being in second in the Atlantic right now in the middle of December is a great place to be, and somewhere we haven't really been in a long time. I can't even tell you the last time that we were in this position, or better. Or even close, really, at this time of the year. Obviously, not last year or any of the previous years since the St. Louis Hughes era or whatever you want to call it. So definitely a great place to be. Only way to go from here is up, obviously. You're going to keep finding ways to get points and keep ourselves in that playoff conversation, sort out some defensive and goaltender issues, and I think we'll be set for a while. I think the only other thing to talk about at this point is trade rumors. I know the Canadiens have kind of been hovering around Philippe Deneau, obviously a former Canadian himself, part of that 2021 playoff run. I think there's been some rumors, some true, some false, about whether or not the Canadiens are interested in bringing him back to Montreal. I'm sure they would be interested. I just know that his contract isn't exactly amazing and not something that we'd want to tack on to our roster, especially if we want to take a swing at a bigger player down the line, like Sidney Crosby, even though that's probably dying a little bit more every day. Obviously, only time will tell with that one, but I wouldn't count on that. But either way, I think it would be definitely interesting to have a guy like Deneau in the lineup, and that might kind of bolster our defense, at least from our forward situation. But it's kind of an interesting thing. I think we've been on the radar with the Blues a little bit about Jordan Kyrou. Obviously, that is stemming from even in last summer. But now that he's on IR and the Blues aren't necessarily playing at the top of their game, that could be kind of an interesting trade there. But that's really all. That's all kind of the rumors, and I think it'd be interesting to add one or both of those players. But I don't know what'll happen there or if that'll happen. Obviously, we have some spaces to fill, and those spaces will hopefully get filled soon with our currently injured players. It looks like Kirby Dach will have to wait a little bit on, but Gouli was back on the ice recently, skating again, so that is good to see. So yeah, I think we're just waiting for those guys to get back, waiting for those guys to get healthy again. It would be really, really nice to have guys like Gouli and Kirby Dach back in the lineup. We've been missing them for quite a while now. So, and obviously Mike Matheson, we still don't really know what his ETA is. We just know that it might be a little bit longer than we might like, at least, maybe even through this weekend or even more. So, yeah, but that all remains to be seen, obviously. Hopefully we can get those guys back, but either way, after tonight's game, I feel pretty confident in what this group can bring. If we bring, the same kind of effort, especially the effort we had in that third period, there was a very nice effort. So if we can bring that effort again on Saturday and Sunday against the Pittsburgh Penguins, I think we can walk out with 4 points. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have for you guys today. Hopefully those 4 points come, and I will see you after each of those on Saturday.